Hi, welcome to the Herbal Hour. I'm your host, Stephen Horn, and with me today is Kimberly Ballas, a naturopathic doctor, and we are going to talk about the miracle of Paw Paw. Paw Paw is a herbal remedy, and it has some very potent compounds in it that have some beautiful medicinal effects for cancer and some other various serious ailments and problems. And this is a new remedy that's just come on the market in the last year or two. It's not a traditional herbal remedy, but it's got some fantastic potential. We've had a chance to use it and learn about it, and we're anxious to share this information with you.
It also has a lot of nice scientific study behind it because there's a lot of documented evidence of this working and exactly how it works.
Yeah, and that's really great. The Paw Paw has a fruit. The Latin name is Asamina. How do you pronounce that? I can't pronounce this stuff.
Asamina triloba.
Asamina triloba. Boy, Latin always trips me up. But these fruits taste a lot like bananas, and they have a custardy flavor, although I've never eaten one. You've tasted one.
I've tasted one. They even have songs about it in the South.
Yeah, I've heard
Paw
it.
Paw Patch, something. I don't know.
Paw Paw. Actually, I think there was one on Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Bear singing about the Paw Paw. But they are edible. They're very nutritious. They're high in protein and essential fatty acids. They grow in the eastern United States, and we have a little graph here that shows you the distribution of the Paw Paw plants in the United States. You can see that they grow in the eastern part of the United States, north of Florida, up to about New York and the Great Lakes region. They're a deciduous tree, and they belong to a family called Ananaceae. And Ananaceae family has about 120 genuses or genera and about 2,100 species. And most of the plants in this family grow in tropical and subtropical climates, and they're mostly trees and shrubs. Paw Paw is the only deciduous or temperate plant in this particular family. This Paw Paw was discovered by Dr. Jerry McLaughlin, who's a pharmacognosist. He was working at Purdue University. He was screening for anti-cancer compounds, and he was using brine shrimp, which are actually those little sea monkeys. You maybe see that have little sea monkey farms you can buy at hobby shops or whatever. They're very good for testing for anti-cancer compounds because things that will kill the little sea monkeys will also kill cancer cells. And so they're commonly used to screen for those kinds of agents. And using those brine shrimp testing, he found that these particular cancer compounds from the Paw Paw family. Why don't you tell a little about the compounds that were discovered in there?
With the Paw Paw, it's what's called an Ananaceous acetogenins. Okay?
That's a mouthful.
3 times, really fast. Okay. These are the compounds with the potential anti-tumor, the cytotoxic, and the pesticidal activities, because Paw Paw has its own natural pesticidal activity within it. So
to keep insects from eating it.
To keep insects from eating it. So a lot of those pesticidal activities have been harnessed and released in certain remedies as well, and we'll talk about that when we get into the products, exactly how those work. Also, it's only found in several of the genuses of the particular Ananaceae family. So the Paw Paw is more potent than things like the graviola.
Yeah, we have a
which is in
picture
the
of
same
the
family.
graviola here.
Okay, but there are over 400 of these particular markers in this family that have been isolated since 1982. A lot of the studies have been done on it by Dr. McLaughlin, and I think they're continuing to learn about the potency of it, and some of the studies that have come out on the potency of this anti-tumoral activity has just been astounding with the success ratio.
Yeah, and the graviola one has been used for cancer already. It's out in the marketplace, but it has much less of these compounds than the Paw Paw. The Paw Paw actually has more of these compounds than any other plant in this family and has some of the highest potency of these particular compounds. So if we move on to some of the effects of Paw Paw that has been discovered in this research, number one, it's a natural pesticide. There's been study that show that it will kill head lice, it will kill mosquito larvae. The interesting thing about it killing things like mosquito larvae is that it is completely non-toxic to higher functioning animals like birds and mammals and so forth, which is different than a lot of the pesticides that are in use right now. So that's kind of exciting the possibility in the future of developing this as a natural pesticide.
Well, I've been using it that way because we've had a lot of mosquitoes and we're always getting dumped with malathion. So I just made up a big spray bottle with just of the diluted shampoo in it, and I just shake it up, and I've been spraying my patio area down and all of my
really?
plants where the little pools of water tend to sit, and you get the larvae for the mosquitoes breeding. And I've not had any mosquito activity on my patio area, so it's been really great. So, I mean, you can just be creative. There are a lot of different uses that you can do for it, as well as, the head lice.
Yeah.
We've been using it. We give our dog a bath in the Paw Paw shampoo, and it totally eliminates fleas.
Yeah, it's also for ticks.
Yeah,
it helps with the ticks too. So that's really
issues.
great. And it has anti-cancer effects, which is one of the things we're going to be concentrating on in this particular presentation, is how it works against tumors. But in addition to that, it's also antimicrobial. It's an antifungal agent, it's an antibacterial agent, and it works on intestinal parasites as well. So that's pretty impressive. Why don't you tell us a little bit about cancer cells, Kim, and just, so we can understand why these compounds work on cancer cells.
Well, when we look at biological terrain with cancer, we know that something has been off in the biological terrain long enough to cause an unhealthy cell to replicate. So part of what does that is you go from an aerobic environment of having oxygen to supply the cells, and then you switch over to anaerobic, where it's almost living like off a waste product. It's in a sludge or a stagnant state. And it stays in that in the beginning of the cancer cells, and then eventually it starts searching for oxygen, and then this tumor starts creating its own venous system, and it starts getting fed, and it starts getting nutrients, and it starts drawing in its own life source supply, and so it keeps replicating, and it replicates faster than healthy cells.
So why does it replicate faster than healthy cells?
There's 7 times more insulin receptor sites.
So it takes
on
up
a
sugar
tumor,
faster.
So it takes up sugar faster, and sugar causes it to grow faster. So that's one thing, especially with any type of cancer program, you're going to have to get them off the sugars. That's imperative. Okay. The other thing is it has 10 times more of the IGF-1 receptors, which is your growth hormone, the precursor to the human growth hormone, your HGH. So it allows it to keep feeding it, and it takes that in, and it just keeps growing and growing. Okay, and you keep getting the replication going on, and it's an unhealthy replication because it's not replicating healthy cells; it's replicating abnormal cells.
And my understanding that the whole thing is that cancer cells have a 10 to 14 times faster metabolism than normal cells, which is why one of the reasons why they grow so fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we go into how getting rid of them and working on the cancer cells, and there's several different ways to program that cell death. Okay, and that's the apoptosis. Okay, apoptosis. There's 2 ways a cell dies. Okay, they're killed by injurious agents. Okay, something comes in and attacks them, or they're induced to commit suicide, to kill themselves. So it's one of those 2 things. So Paw Paw causes it or induces the apoptosis in cancer cells.
So what it does is it makes cancer cells commit suicide.
Exactly. So it causes them to stop their replication.
Anymore.
Because and you change the host environment. And if you're not a good host, what happens?
The guests leave.
They leave.
Okay.
So if you're not a good host and there's not a good replication activity there, then they start dying off. And that the Paw Paw goes in through, we'll get into the ATP production cycle of how it stops ATP production. It stops the energy supply from going to the unhealthy cell that it needs to replicate.
Great. Yeah, well, let's take a look at that. We've got a little graphic here that shows a picture of kind of like a little box that represents the cell. And inside the cell, we have these little energy production things called the mitochondria. And inside the mitochondria, we have this process called the Krebs cycle that produces energy. And that energy is utilized in the cell in the form of a compound called adenosine triphosphate, which is called ATP for short. And ATP is what allows the cell to have energy-producing functions. Well, what Paw Paw does is Paw Paw comes in and inhibits the production of ATP. So if we put up the little thing that represents that, what it does is it goes in and it blocks 2 of the enzymes that are used in, one in the mitochondria and one I think in the cell membrane, that 2 different kinds of ATP production, so it inhibits the production of ATP inside the cell. Well, obviously it's going to inhibit it to a certain degree inside healthy cells too, but the reason why it inhibits it mostly in cancer cells is because cancer cells have to have such a high energy production to survive. And so if the energy production in the cancer cell is slowed down, it commits suicide. Whereas the healthy cells have a better chance to just kind of weather it, because they don't need that high rate of energy production in order to survive. So it induces them to kill themselves. Now, one of the interesting things about chemotherapy agents, because chemotherapy agents, a lot of them work, especially the more modern ones that are taken from some plants, work on some of these mechanisms too. But in terms of inducing the cell to commit suicide, killing them, but most of them also kill healthy cells along with the cancer cells. Also, what happens over time is cancer cells become resistant to chemotherapy because the cancer cells develop a way of pumping the drugs out of the cell membrane so that the cells can't be killed. Now, Paw Paw, on the other hand, has a mechanism by which it prevents that from happening, and we're going to take a look at that with a couple of slides here. This one represents the chemotherapy drug getting pumped out of the cell membrane, and in order to pump it back out of the cell membrane, it requires ATP. Okay, so what does Paw Paw do again? Paw Paw inhibits that production of ATP, and what that would do is it actually makes chemotherapy more effective against cancer cells, because it actually makes the drug stay in the cell and the cell dies because it doesn't have the ATP to make the pump work to pump it out. We have a little animation clip here that we'd like to show you that talks a little bit about the problem of cancer and gives you kind of a visual impact to demonstrate this thing about how Paw Paw works. So we're going to play that right now.
Last year, more than 1.2 million people in the United States were diagnosed with some form of cancer. More than 500,000 people died from the disease. That's 1 per minute. Among women, breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed form. It is also the 3rd leading cause of all cancer deaths. However, depending on the stage of the cancer at diagnosis, 21 to 86% of women who develop breast cancer will survive for more than 5 years with conventional treatment. Cancer can begin in many ways. One way is by a free radical damaging a portion of a cell's DNA, the body's genetic code. Even though we each have an elaborate system to fix this kind of damage, there is a chance our body can't make an exact repair. If a misrepair happens to a section of DNA involved in a cell's growth, the cell may become cancerous. That is, the abnormal cell may begin to divide uncontrollably and spread throughout the organ and possibly to other areas of the body. As the tumor grows, it pushes neighboring normal cells out of the way. It also initiates vascular growth to provide a blood supply to the rapidly growing mass. When it grows large enough, the tumor can be felt through the skin, and in worst-case scenarios, it may even grow to the edge of the skin and create a surface lesion. As Paw Paw's active components are absorbed into the bloodstream, they travel to the cancerous tissue. The operative compounds are absorbed into the cells and make their way into the inner workings of the cell. Once inside the cells, these compounds seek out the mitochondria of the cell. All cells, especially cancer cells, need energy to grow and divide, and most of the energy cells use is produced by the mitochondria. Along the inner membrane of the mitochondria are collections of 5 complexes that are responsible for converting molecules from the food we eat into a form of energy that cells can use. Each trip through these complexes produces a molecule called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which provides the energy necessary for nearly all cellular functions. Resistant cancer cells have a built-in protection mechanism, a pump in their cell membrane that pushes chemotherapeutic drugs and other toxins out of the cell. Since the pump requires ATP energy, when Paw Paw blocks production of ATP, the chemotherapeutic drugs remain in the cancer cells longer. This makes Paw Paw an excellent adjunct for chemotherapy. Once the paw paw compounds enter the mitochondria, they attach to the first complex and block the chain reaction, slowing or stopping the production of ATP. Heavily dependent on energy from the mitochondria, the cancer cells are essentially starved when the production of ATP is blocked. The weakened cells begin a process of programmed cell death. Since ATP is also required for the production of new blood vessels to feed cancer cells, the tumor's blood supply also begins to disappear, further hastening the tumor's death. Together, this may lead to a reduction in tumor size and hopefully an eventual disappearance of cancerous cells. In chemotherapy, the drugs that prevent growth or kill abnormal cells can also harm and often kill healthy cells. Although cancer cells grow faster than healthy cells and are therefore affected to a greater extent, chemotherapy is harmful to both cancerous and healthy cells.
Now, Kim and I don't personally recommend chemotherapy. However, this product can be used as an adjunct to chemotherapy, but it actually works just fine without the chemotherapy. So it's a great compound. It's already been proving to be very beneficial to a number of people who've been actually using it in clinical practice. Now, I'm not real big usually on standardized extracts and so forth. I normally like to use whole plants, but in this case, we're dealing with a standardized extract of these compounds from Paw Paw, and I think this is an appropriate place because this way you can get an appropriate amount of these compounds, which really are the active ingredients in this, in a standardized way. And you can't just run out and get Paw Paw and start using it because the amount of these compounds can vary from one tree to another by as much as 10,000 times difference. So you actually have to have the chemistry here to assay and make sure you're getting the compound from plants, and you've got to standardize it because you're just 10,000 times variation is not something you can play with in something as serious as cancer.
And right now, Nature's Sunshine is the only company that has that.
That's right. It's just a very special thing. Another thing that's interesting is you can only harvest these compounds at certain times of the year. We have a graph here we can put up here that shows the top two lines show the levels in Paw Paw plant of certain compounds, some of these compounds, at certain times of the year. And you'll note that they peak right before the plant starts to produce the fruit in May and June. And so what happens is these compounds are in there to inhibit insects from eating the immature fruit. So it concentrates in the twigs and then it moves into the fruit, and the material that they find is the easiest to get this out of is the twigs. So they harvest the twigs right at the point in which they have the highest percentage of these compounds and extract them out. And so this product can only be produced in May. So it's not something that can be harvested year-round, but still it's got a lot of potential. And we mentioned this is a complex, though, of a whole group of these compounds. And Kim's going to go over a slide of one of the tests of the anti-tumor properties of these particular compounds compared to a standard chemotherapy drug.
Right. And this is some of Dr. McLaughlin's work,
Yes.
and he's had this done by the Abbott Company. It's who these studies were performed by. And you can look on the chart, you're going to see two different colors represented here. It's the cytotoxicities of several acetogenins. And on this chart, you're going to see two different markers. One color is for the A549, which is the lung indicator, and then there's a P388, which is the murine leukemia tumors. You're going to look at the top one, which is the andriamycin, which is one of the chemo drugs, and you can see how it works effectively, and you can indicated by the different variations on the bar graph there on the two bars of how it worked on each one of those cancer tissues. Then if you look at all of the rest of the ones listed there, they're all properties of the Paw Paw.
They're all the examples of the different compounds, the acetogenins from Paw Paw.
And if you look down where it has the bulatacin as one of the more active ingredients in the Paw Paw, you can tell how it works almost equally on the human lung tissue and on the murine leukemia tumors.
And not only that, does it work equally, but it looks like it works about 6 times better.
And actually, from what I understood from Dr. Romero, is that the pawpaw has a 6,000 times more potency than the andriamycin that's the chemo drug.
Yeah, so we're almost all of the compounds have a greater
They have
anti-tumor
effect.
effect than the drug, and put them all together synergistically, and they have an even better effect. Okay, what's this next chart that we have here?
Okay, the next one that we're going to look at is the tumor growth inhibition of the bulotasinin D, and this is against where it's compared against the andriamycin that's resistant to the mammary carcinoma or your breast cancer cells. Okay, and if you look in white, this represents the active ingredient in the pawpaw of how effective it was, okay, of inhibiting. So the more that you see on there, the more on the graph, that's how much more it inhibited the tumor activity. And you can look, compared to that in the red down there, the andriamycin, you can understand why it's 6,000 times more potent. Now, that was with the tumor cells. And you look over with the normal cells, and this is very, very important because this is showing you how many healthy cells you have lost with each of these. So you'll see here where the andriamycin is much higher of killing off the normal healthy cells, right, where the pawpaw is lower. So you have a rate here of attacking abnormal cell structure without compromising that much healthy cell structure. So it's definitely a win-win situation.
Yeah. Now, I had a chance to interview Dr. McLaughlin, and one of the things that you have is when you find something like this, and especially when it's found by a pharmacognosist and done through this kind of scientific research, I said, how come we haven't had any drug companies develop this? And he told me that it was all politics. I mean, he had one drug company that was going to develop it, and the researcher who was working on it died, and the one who took over hated the other researcher and burned all of it, I mean, basically destroyed all of his projects. And he took it to the National Cancer Institute, and they went ahead with some other company that had more political favor or whatever. So it's like all this. So he decided the only way he could develop this was to get involved in the natural products industry.
Yay!
Yeah, good for us. So this is pretty exciting stuff. We have a list here of some of the ways in which pawpaw regulates cells and helps to combat cancer cells. And the first one is that we already mentioned it slows or stops the ATP production so that it depletes the energy, causing apoptosis or programmed cell death. And it blocks this in two different cycles. It blocks it both in the anaerobic cycle, which is favored by the cancer cells, and also in the aerobic cycle. So it prevents those cells from getting energy from either of those two pathways. And again, the cancer cells need so much more energy than healthy cells that little bit of blocking causes them to kill themselves because they just can't stand it.
And it works internally in that mitochondrial area, so it goes within the cell to block that and to work on that not replicating, and then it also works on that cell membrane as well. So it's hitting it from both of those points through a couple of different enzymes, the oxidoreductase and the oxidase.
Great. Well, the second way that this works is it's because ATP is required as a direct and indirect precursor of DNA and RNA. In other words, without ATP, you can't reproduce DNA and RNA, which means the cell can't divide. And so what that does is it inhibits cell division or cell reproduction, so it slows down the growth of the cancer cells and so forth. And the third mechanism by which it regulates them is ATP is required for blood vessel formation. And so many of you have heard of the shark cartilage thing. And of course, what that's supposed to do is inhibit the formation of new blood vessels so that the tumor can't grow.
Cuts off the life supply.
Comes off the life supply. Well, pawpaw does that too, so that's pretty impressive as well. And the last mechanism by which pawpaw works is there's a drug-resistant pump inside the cell that requires ATP. So what it does is it again inhibits that pump so that other agents would kill those cells are not able to be pumped out of the cell membrane. Now, what's really exciting is you're looking at this and you're going, wow, here's this great, this is like herbal chemotherapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Except what's the toxicity of this? So Kim, tell
Well,
about the study that was done
There
with
was a
that.
study done on some dogs, and they all wound up safe. Okay, there was no animal abuse conducted. Okay, didn't want PETA to get upset. Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, they were fed capsules with 25 milligrams of the standardized extract, and the doses went up anywhere from 50 to 800 milligrams, and the dogs were healthy and robust throughout the whole study, and
None of them
nothing
died.
happened. None of them died.
Yeah, the only thing Dr. McLaughlin told me is that when they got to a certain dose, the dogs would throw it up.
And that's the worst thing that can happen is you can throw up on this. And I've been fortunate to use this already with several of my clients. And actually, some of the feedback that I'm getting is that they actually feel like they have more energy. And I found that just since it's cutting off ATP, I'm like, wow, that's really fascinating. So it's like it's only cutting off the ATP production to those abnormal cells, and their other cells seem to be getting the energy. So it's
Well,
been,
the cancer cells compete for nutrients.
they
so
compete,
I guess,
so you're getting
so
more
as you slow the
nutrients.
cancer cells, I guess it
Exactly.
helps the healthy ones.
So I've got like 8 different people on this now, and one of them has a glioblastoma brain tumor, and she was so tired she couldn't get out of bed, and of course she was having the major headaches and everything, and she's only been on it for like 3 weeks, and it's just been phenomenal. She goes, I have more energy than I have had in 6 months. And then I've used it on another lady I have with a thyroid tumor. And just in the 3 weeks again, the nodule has already started going down. We can see that it's not as dense. It's actually, instead of being a hard nodule like on the thyroid, you push on it and it's softened up. And it's like more like jelly, like you can almost move it around now. And then I've got another incident of somebody that we were using it with some spots that had been detected on the lung. I have another client with stage 4 breast cancer that's feeling more energetic and not as tired. So, I mean, those are just a few incidences. And one lady that had actually taken it, that I had recommended it to, thought that it was 4 capsules 4 times a day instead of the 1 capsule 4 times a day, like we're going to get into when we start suggesting dosage. And the only thing that happened, she was taking 4 times the amount recommended, and the only thing that happened was she got a little nauseous. And she started feeling a little bit tired. So I explained to her, I said, you know, it's 1 4 times a day instead of 4 times a day. So then she just corrected it, and she said she feels great now.
That's wonderful. You know, Dr. McLaughlin told me that the guy who did the study on the dogs of the toxicity said he had never seen an agent that worked on cancer cells that didn't kill the animals.
Because animals are a lot more sensitive.
And so he was just blown away that this did not kill the dogs, that they kept upping the dose, and it wouldn't.
It's really fabulous stuff, and I've used the graveolins before, and I've had, you know, some limited success rates with it, but so far, I mean, you know, like I said, I only have like 8 people right now, and I work integratively with an oncologist, and he's very excited about using this, so we're going to be trying it on more and more people.
It's exciting. Well, we have several Paw Paw products right now that we can choose, and one of them is the Paw Paw Lice Remover Shampoo, which we've had for a little while, but we're going to, in this video, there's a lot more uses to that shampoo than just for lice. So we're going to talk about some of the uses for the shampoo. There's the Paw Paw Celreg, which is a standardized extract of the paw paw that contains the acetogenins, and this is the product that we are talking about using for cancers. But there's another great way to use this, since it kills intestinal parasites. It's also been incorporated into the ParaCleanse. So we now have ParaCleanse with Paw Paw, which I think is going to make our parasite cleansing program as effective as any drug at killing parasites. There are probably more so with less toxicity, because parasites are hard to get rid of sometimes. So.
And I've been using that one myself, so, and I feel great when I take it, and my colon therapist now is recommending it to a lot of people that she has continuously done colonics over and over and over with them, and continuously sees, you know, little particles of indications that would be parasitical indications in their stool, and she started recommending this now with the Paw Paw in it, with the ParaCleanse. And the results are tenfold, she said. They're more dramatic than what she was getting with just the regular ParaCleanse.
That's great. Why don't you tell us how to use the Paw Paw Celreg formula, and give us a little bit of a clue of how you go about using this stuff.
Okay,
Since you've had some experience now with it.
It's 4 times a day.
Which, by the way, Dr. McLaughlin says you can take more if you can stomach it.
You can take it up to the point of feeling nauseous, but usually the recommended is 4 times a day, and a lot of the people that are getting results on it are 4 times a day. So if you know, and this, I'm guessing that this is based on the average person, which your average person is 150 pounds. So if you have somebody that weighs a little bit more or they have larger tumor activity, then yeah, I would probably tend to take it up and just, you know, if they started feeling nauseous with the amount you increase it, to back off. Okay, the higher doses are safe.
You're just going to throw up if you take too much.
So, I mean, you know, you might waste a few herbs by throwing it back up, so you might want to save your money and keep it down. Okay, but it's not recommended like for cancer prevention. This is for already existing cancer cells that are there. So if somebody has had a diagnosis, then definitely use this product with them. If you're not sure if they have cancer cells present, then I would probably send them out for some tumor marker, some blood tests you can have run. You can have a CA 125 run for you know, ovarian cancer, your CA 15-3 for breast cancer, your CEAs for the colon, and your CA 19 for your pancreatic, you know, hepatic type cancers. So go ahead and have the test run if they suspect anything at all. With the breast cancer, if you've run a CA 15-3 marker and it's fairly low, like under your 31, and they still kind of feel like maybe they have lumps present or something, I really recommend getting a thermography done to see what's going on with there. I'm not real in favor of mammograms just because they potentiate the occurrence of breast cancer. So use some of the integrative connections that you have network. It's also a really good way that you can network with some oncologists to get them interested in this, and also be able to use some of their testing procedures to determine if they do have a cancer or tumor present.
Well, and one of the reasons why you don't want to do this is because Dr. McLaughlin says there is a chance that it may, by taking it continually, the body gets resistant to things.
Right.
If you take it continually. And so when you really need it, it may not work as effectively. Plus, if you think of the fact that this slows down energy production in the body, you're not wanting to take something that slows down energy production when you're healthy.
And I am just starting to use this as well because it's just been amazing stuff. And I have found, this has just been my little rule of thumb too. If somebody hasn't gotten the test done yet and they feel like that they might have cancer stuff going on and they want to try this as a preventive thing, I still don't concur, you know, don't do it as a preventative, but one little thing I have noticed just clinically that's been interesting is the people that have actually had cancer cells that use it feel more energetic. And the people that have taken it that really didn't need it tell me how incredibly tired they are. Like they just want to sleep. And I've got to explore that more with some more studies on it to use this more and see. But it was really interesting because the 2 people that did get tired on it, I sent them in for CA tumor marker activity and they had none. So it's kind of putting this little correspondence. It's not saying that that's a definite. I'm just telling you what I'm like tracking here with this.
Well, what would you recommend them taking with Paw Paw for working if they have cancer?
The program that I'm using right now, and you know, I always come up with my own little things, but this was recommended by Dr. Romero when I went to one of the regional meetings, and I have been using it effectively with this recommendation of putting the immune stimulator because of the beta-glucan activity in it, and the protease on an empty stomach to use because protease will break down some of that tumor activity as well, that cellular membrane wall. It helps to destroy that. It breaks down those proteolytic enzymes too that feed that. So
the immune stimulator helps your white blood cells to go after the abnormal cells, right?
So that it can recognize them. It enhances like their perceptive activity of recognizing that they actually exist, okay? Because sometimes they'll get confused because it has its own life supply and venous system that it might be part of self. So it helps it start identifying self and not self. So those 3 with the Paw Paw, okay, putting the immune stimulator, the protease without food, it has to be on empty stomach, and putting the Paw Paw together with that, the 4 times a day. That's the program that I've started, the people that I have so far on it, and they have been doing phenomenal on that. Now, I know at some point noni has been recommended and talked about in here, but my understanding is that noni has some antioxidant properties, and the antioxidants are contraindicated to use in conjunction with the pawpaw. So I have just been, working with this, and I've had people on the pawpaw program to leave them on it 3 or 4 weeks, and then for 1 week just do the noni, and then go back to their program just to build up a little bit in between. And
So
then
you're
go
doing
back.
a cleansing and then a little building and then a cleansing and then a little building.
Just not to keep them cleansing, and like Dr. McLaughlin said, not to get too resistant to what's coming in. So I've just got a 3 to 4 week program with the protease, immune stimulator, and pawpaw. Then for a week of just doing noni, I'm not adding anything else in, just as a nutritive, and then going back to the other program. And we're really seeing great results with that program, and I'm seeing results. And when I say I'm seeing results, it's because after the 3.5 weeks, I've had the 3 people I mentioned ran CA markers on them, and they're coming down. So I mean, that's a biochemical blood, value that you can see. It actually has shifted. So that was proof positive for me.
Yeah. In fact, before this product was released, there were 130 people that they did a clinical trial on with this that had various types of cancer, and all of them basically showed improvement there. They had reduction of tumor size that was verified by various types of medical diagnosis. They had a reduction in the tumor markers that you're talking about in their blood, and there were 3 people who reported side effects. 2 reported nausea and vomiting, which is one of the things we
Right.
already know, and 1 said they started to itch, which might have been a detoxification method, but they didn't like that, so they quit taking it because they quit taking it because they started to itch. And I thought, oh, that's funny. That was a lot better, than taking chemotherapy and having your
Exactly.
stomach turn to hamburger and your hair fall out. But so this product was very thoroughly tested, and not only with the science behind it, but in clinical trials, it's proving to be very, very clinically effective.
And I think, as an herbalist and as a natural health practitioner and a naturopath, it's been one of our areas that's been really challenging to work with. I had been using the graviola, but it is a challenging area because it's this little 20% segment sometimes that we don't know what to do with, and we're not always confident in that we actually have tools that are potent enough to make a difference. And it gets into that little area, do I go ahead and take this chance? Do I tell this person to clean their diet up and go ahead and do this and not do the chemo? Well, that still has to be their choice of whether they choose to do the chemo or not. But if it were me, I would not choose that.
But some of the people on this clinical trial were doing chemo and
still got results.
And they still got results. And also, some of these people were in stage 4 cancer, where they basically the chemotherapy and stuff wasn't working anymore, and they started the pawpaw and they still got results. So
I've got a stage 4 person that was chemo resistant too, and she's getting results with this, so that's great.
That's fantastic. Now, of course, let's move off the subject of the serious cancer, and let's go back to this pawpaw lice remover shampoo. I had a chance a couple of weeks ago to do some videotaping with Dr. Hugo Rodier and Dr. Clell Fowles, and I was surprised to learn about all the uses of the pawpaw shampoo. I mean, Clell was talking about it clearing up acne, and he says he's had people use it as a face wash, okay? And then after they've done washing their face, just to take just a little dab of it and just leave it on the skin, and he says it'll clear up acne, overnight or a day or 2. And he's also taken where people had that really serious athlete's foot toenail fungus stuff, and wash their feet in the pawpaw shampoo, and then again put a little thin coat on it, and put a sock on it and go to bed, and it's gotten better overnight.
We've had some really good success with the toenail fungus as well, and I add Nature's Fresh to that. So instead of using water to make the shampoo liquid, I add the Nature's Fresh to make it soapy, and then have them just soak their feet in that and then put it on at night before bed, and that's been working really great.
How fast has it been clearing up?
I've had people that have had their actual toenails removed, trying to remove the fungus, and as soon as they grow back out, the fungus grows out with it.
Yeah.
And in as little as 3 weeks, it's been completely gone.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We've also been using it for psoriasis too, because it's another area that's really challenging as an herbalist because
It is. I've had a hard time with that one.
It's different in every single person. So it's like one remedy that I find that I might use for one person may not work at all for the other person.
Isn't psoriasis the one where the skin is growing too fast?
Right, and it gets really scaly and itchy and red and inflamed.
Yeah, well, that would make sense because if this slows down cell reproduction, it would slow down the psoriasis.
So, and it's worked consistently so far in every single person I've been using it for with psoriasis, and it's the same thing. You wash it, but then you leave a thicker coating of it on overnight, and you cover it, whatever you need to do to keep it on overnight. If it's, I have a lot of people that have psoriasis around the scalp area, and I just have them put like the shower cap over their head and sleep with it on. And then I just, instead of having them wash it off with water, I have them spray it with the Nature's Fresh to rinse it off, just to add some more enzymes back in. But of course we use that for everything.
And then it's a pet product too. Because you can use it as a shampoo for your dogs and cats and stuff.
Oh, and it works great,
for fleas and ticks
I haven't had to buy flea shampoo for my dog. It's been great. Yeah, we use that. And like I said, the mosquito spray that I've been using outside, I just mix it up with the Nature's Fresh and a little water and just spray it around the whole grass and patio area because it does nothing to the grass. It's great. It doesn't kill the grass. It doesn't kill, like I spray it like right in my plants and it hasn't killed that. I've actually used it on one of my palm trees. The leaves coming out had these little white bugs that just look like a little fungus on it. And I actually made up the Paw Paw shampoo and just not even that potent, just made it like soapy water, and I took a sponge and went out and just wiped all the leaves off, and they haven't come back.
Wonderful.
They're totally gone. So, I mean, it's been...
I'm going to have to try that as a houseplant spray. Get those little fruit flies that grow in your houseplants. I'll have to try it and see how it works on those. Also, Dr. Clell Fowles reported that it works on some other kinds of scalp conditions when people have not just psoriasis, but other scalp conditions, that this shampoo has helped to clear up a number of other scalp conditions that people have.
We've had even things with kids with scalp issues. We've had them, it's like really not a normal thing that small children get dandruff. So we've even used it on things like that, and it's helped.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, the other product that this is in now is the Paracleanse with Paw Paw. And this Paracleanse not only has the Paw Paw Cell Reg in it, but it has some other really great products. It has the Chinese herbal pumpkin combination, which is a formula that we've had for a long time to help expel parasites. And a great new product, the Yeast Fungal Detox, which you and I have both used, and that's a really good formula for getting rid of the yeast and candida. It's got several herbs in it, Paudiarco, I think garlic, several others that are very helpful antifungal agents. The Artemisia combination with the wormwood in it, and then by adding the Paw Paw Cell Reg, this is probably one of the best products in the marketplace for getting rid of the harmful microorganisms, the yeast and parasites in the intestinal tract.
It covers the complete cycle because you've got the Artemisia combination in there with the mugwort and the wormwood, and that's covering like the larvae cycle. And then with the Paw Paw, you're cutting off the life supply to them, and then you've got the yeast fungal detox because the bacteria and the yeast is what feeds them. The funguses is what they live off from. Okay, and then you've also got the Chinese herbal pumpkin, which helps to break down the adult
and also
parasites.
Gets rid of the eggs because the
and
silica.
Works on the eggs as well.
So you basically, if you're having any kind of like health problems that are just kind of vague, and one of the things you might want to do is just do a parasite cleanse, because a lot of people have parasites and don't know it. Just do a parasite cleanse and then follow that up with your enzymes and your probiotics and a little bit of fiber, minerals, and your basic program, and keep yourself in good shape that way. So that's also a great product. Now, there are a few things about this product that we need to cover. There are some products that you want to avoid taking when you're using Paw Paw internally because they inhibit the effectiveness of Paw Paw. And in some of the case studies that were done with this, some of the people who weren't getting results, it's because they were taking some of these things, and as soon as they got off these other supplements, they got better. So Kim, you want to tell us about some of the things that you can't use with Paw Paw?
Okay, well, one of the major things is are the antioxidants, because you're trying to block this ATP production cycle, okay, and then the antioxidants work against that. Okay. Also, like CoQ10, because CoQ10 increases ATP production, of course.
Yeah.
So your CoQ10, your super antioxidant, your high potency gray pine, those are a few that you want to avoid. Also, thyroid stimulators, and this is your thyroid glandulars, okay, and even thyroid medication, from what Dr. Romero was explaining to me.
Oh.
So any type of thyroid stimulator, your Target TS2, your TS2, thyroid activator, all of those you would have to avoid. And my understanding of it is kelp and dulse as well, because they're feeding thyroid, even though they're more nutritive and they're a milder first degree form of an herb, but it's still just to be safe, to make sure, especially, if you're dealing with definite, cancer stage 4 issues, you would definitely want to come off from those. Some other things are the target endurance and the cellular energy, because cellular energy increases cell production, intake of nutrients, and flushing toxins out in the cell. So those are a few.
Well, both of those products enhance mitochondrial production of
Right.
ATP, so that would be
So
like
you have to take those off.
totally contradictory,
And 7-keto is another one.
because
that
it
would be-
enhances thyroid.
It works with the thyroid activity. And actually, there'll be a whole list attached in your notes of all of the specific NSP products that you would need to avoid. And they're also posted along with some testimonials already of some people with the Paw Paw on the Nature Sunshine Forum, which is nspforum.com, that you can log on and just check out the Paw Paw topics on there.
Yeah, so this is an exciting new product. We want to add one note of caution, and that is that we can't go around and tell people that Paw Paw is going to cure them of their cancer. The reason for this is, even though we've got research that shows that Paw Paw can be very helpful in inducing cancer cells to commit suicide, it's illegal in this country to cure cancer. Let me just be, no, the truth of the matter is that representing you can cure cancer
Will get you in a whole lot of trouble.
which can get you in a whole lot of trouble. And what we want to do is we want to have this product be on the market. We don't want to have
We want to keep this product. I mean, we had some situations where we've lost some effective products. The Chinese red rice extract, we lost that because of the effectiveness of it, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. So it's kind of like, okay, go tell everybody about this, but okay, keep it quiet. Okay.
Well, what you need to do is give them the research, give them the information so they can read about it and see what it's about, and see if they would like to try it. But don't go telling people, well, this will cure your cancer, because that's making a drug claim for this product, and we don't want to make a drug claim. Explain the research to them, explain the information, because that's educational. You can educate people about the research, but we can't make drug claims for this product.
And you also can't recommend that people shouldn't do the chemo. That has to be their own choice. You can, again, hand them the educational materials. We'll have more educational materials printed, such as a sunshine sharing issue, and a handout coming out that you can use as well.
And an audio cassette.
And an audio cassette to use as informational material. And let that speak for you. Don't get in trouble by making claims, and let's try to keep this product in our hands as long as possible.
That's right. Thank you for watching. We hope that this information will help you to help either yourself or any other people that you may know that may be in need of this wonderful product, and spread the word, but do it in a way that keeps us so that we don't get in trouble for making unapproved claims.
Pass it on, but quietly. Okay.